Hey, what up, everybody out there? This is Duran here again. I got another one off the cuff. This is probably going to be one of my last ones for the 2021 year. What another eventful year it has been. So much going on, and I don't have one video to pack it all into, but I did jot down just a couple of things to keep me on target as far as things I'd like to discuss today. What is today? Today is December 22nd, 2021. We are one day removed from the official beginnings of winter. Winter is now upon us. We once heard phrases like dark winter in the past from a former POTUS. And, that has, revealed that there's been, targeted areas and regions of the country that have had and suffered very tumultuous winters. This past year, it was Texas. Many days outages for power and, ice storms and things like that that were kind of like historical on record because those parts of the country typically don't get that type of weather. So that's just one example. But also, the powers that be like to spring traps, implement agendas, and do it on certain days that they recognize, for dark powers in the occult, in Luciferianism, even in Masonry. So, that's another reason why this period of time is a transition into what is literally and figuratively some of the darkest times, simply because there's, not an abundance of daylight. With daylight savings time being cut short, we have more hours of darkness than we do daylight. But also I wanted to just talk about how these are really defining times that we're living in. And yes, there's many things that are going on. There's a lot of factors at play, but it's also a defining time because many things are being redefined. In the super book, I think in the books of Daniel, it talks about how, the beast would look to change laws and times, to kind of fit in with his purpose and his agenda. Cold or flu, we don't even talk about for the most part anymore because all of that has been snatched up by what we know as C-19. So that's another thing that's been redefined. When people are laid to rest, oftentimes the certificate of their death is defined as C-19, not a pneumonia or something else that ended up being fatal. Real quickly, I just want to talk about wow, classic conditioning is in full effect. We are over 2 years removed now from the initial start of this pandemic, and people have been groomed and conditioned on what is socially and culturally acceptable now, meaning you definitely cover up if you're sneezing or coughing. You're wearing masks as often as you can. And what's really funny to me is that they're really trying to push this whole, electric revolution down our throats, where these combustible engine cars will no longer, serve the purpose of helping Mother Earth and defeating, climate change. But, we need these electric vehicles. And I think some of the worst drivers I've seen on the road have been some folks driving around in Priuses. And I know there's many jokes said about that, but no, honestly, how often have you looked out the window while you're traveling and you've seen somebody in the vehicle by themselves with a mask on their face? How many times have you, caught a glance out the window and seen somebody walking down the street with a mask on their face, walking by themselves, out in the open? It's no longer considered strange. It's now the norm, sadly. And, it's disappointing to see that. But that just shows how conditioning works. People have kind of made that like Linus's blanket from, Charlie Brown. That's their comfort, their security, their blanket of security over the top of their face. Now, early on in this pandemic, there was a period of like what we see with our cell phones and our providers. They give you a chance to opt in to certain updates and system changes and things of that sort. There's something to be said about how people have been given the chance to opt in to getting the jabs and getting the boosters and everything else like that. But even so much as things being incentivized, you had a chance to win a lottery prize, or tuition paid, or free house, $50,000 dropped in your bank account, stuff like that. I've never in my adult life seen so much done by the powers that be, the government, all the big players, influencers, to try to get people on board with this thing. But now that those things haven't moved on, and they have identified a percentage of people that have still refused to sign up or opt into this. Take ice bucket challenge, stuff like that. They're no longer incentivizing it like they once were. Now there's the stark warnings given by our POTUS. There's the strong warnings and reminders that are being discussed. There's penalties that are being mentioned, and now, of course, presidential mandate that was mentioned earlier this year. It was moving forward. It was going to be empowered and authorized to hold people, employers of 100 people or more, accountable through OSHA. That got stalled in legislation. There was a bunch of appeals that were made and stuff like that. But then recently, days before our big holiday, it was released back into, to be reinstated. So now there are, the new changes that they expect to take place at the start of the year. Penalties for non-compliance, $14,000 a pop per offense. And this is where, a presidential mandate has now got the kings of industry, the corporations, falling in line to do, these presidential orders and fulfill that. So moving forward, let me just talk about, we got used to what were considered lockdowns. No longer able to travel, no longer able to go to places, to do business and things like that. But then there was such a loud outcry about why, businesses had to suffer because of this pandemic. Many businesses were no longer able to operate or pay for, employees, especially when, it was easier for them to sit at home and get checks from Uncle Sam. So even though they're not saying it this way, but when you look at what's taking place, it's no longer lockdowns, they are lockouts. You are being locked out of the ability to, go to places to do your business or to dine without having that certificate of jab identification, that COVID. Many big cities, large metropolises, many that are far left, large cities like New York City and Chicago have already fallen in line with this. And Chicago, I think, was the most recent. So as you see these big cities take these measures to flatten the curve, you're going to hear the expression from other regions of the country saying we ought to do the same. We've seen the data, the proofs that this has, stalled the spread of the C-19. So, it's a really pressing time right now. Honestly, when I was younger, I had a lot more fun going into the retailers and window shopping. Now it's not that fun anymore. People are scared, they're skittish, they're, no eye contact. It's becoming a lot less humane. And if you so much as clear your throat, have a sneeze, or and you do one of these, oh my goodness, do you feel all the eyes piercing down on you in contempt and judgment? So this is not the same type of world as it once was. That's why they call it a new world, with a new world order. And these are the things that they're trying to birth into this age of time. So stay vigilant, stay prayed up. I only share these thoughts with you because I think in many cases we have similar thoughts. We just may not take the time to express them. But I think the more that we share and express ourselves, compare notes, we'll find how we are really a lot of the same. So God bless you, and I hope that you find the real reason for the season, the birth of baby Jesus. So God bless you. Hope to do this again soon. Ron off the cuff. Peace.